shopping. I took her to the playground. I took her to the zoo. I took her to all these places where we've been having a great time. And then at night, I would take her to VBS. And so then one day, my niece, my nephews and my nieces are a little bratty. Because my sister, well, she might get to. My sister tried, but, you know, she's just, the battle of parenting between her and my mom, and of course, you know, some of you that grew up with grandparents, we always get our way, right? And so that's the way it is with my niece. Well, then, in my house, we're very disciplined. I have 5 kids, and it has to be disciplined, or else my house will be chaotic, and then Tracee will not live long. So in my house, we have certain rules. And she decided that she's going to break one of those rules, which is fine. And I told her, well, Sadie, you understand that you did disobey Auntie, right? And then she's like, and then I said, come and hug Auntie and say sorry. What's the matter, Sadie? Come. Do you understand that you did something wrong? Mm-hmm. Then why don't you want to come here and give me a hug and say sorry, and then we can be finished with it? I don't want to. That's what she said. And I said, okay. And I said, Sadie, come here. And then she didn't. But she did come, like a couple seconds later, and instead she hit me. Now that's a big no-no in our family. You cannot hit parents in our family. And in her family, that was okay, but in my family, that's not okay. So I said, I'm sorry, Sadie, I'm going to have to put you on timeout now. So I put Sadie on timeout for about 5 minutes, and she cried her little head out. You know, it was really crazy. And Finn, you know, he can't stand that, and he's like, you know, and he was funny because Finn's not really, he's the youngest, so he's not used to having a younger person to take care of. And then so he's like, oh, you know. And then so then she just cried. She cried for 5 minutes because, you know, that's her age, and so she gets to sit for 5 minutes. But I would come to her every minute and says, are you ready to talk? No! You know, that's how she was, okay? And then I would say, anytime you're ready to talk, okay? No! And I'm like, okay, you know? So then I just went on with what I need to do, and I would say, okay, Sadie, it's actually been 5 minutes, and that's all I wanted to give you for your time out. Do you want to talk now? And now she's calmer, and she says, okay. And then so then I said, okay, come and sit on Auntie's lap, and let's talk about this, okay? So then I said, sit down, and I said, why did you do what you did? Because I want to. Okay, that's fine, but you understand that that's selfishness, that you're not thinking about everybody else. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, Sadie. Thank you for saying sorry. Now give Auntie a hug and a kiss. So she gave me a hug and a kiss, and I said, see, in my house, when we discipline, we always end with a prayer and asking forgiveness to God. Because when we hurt each other, we hurt God. So I said, Sadie, we got to ask Jesus to say sorry to Jesus because we've hurt each other. And, well, basically, you've hurt everybody in the house. And you've hurt Auntie. So it's time for you to say sorry. And Sadie says, I don't want to say sorry. Why don't you not want to say sorry to Jesus? Because Jesus hates me. Okay. Why do you think Jesus hates me? Because I'm a bad girl. That's why. I like to do bad things. And even if I try to be good, I still do bad things. And Jesus will never love me. Okay. Quick prayer. And I was thinking, how do I instill in this little 5-year-old about God, about his love? And so we sat there and we had a long talk. And I helped her understand, of course. And I look back in my own life as a child, growing up with my own grandmother. And my grandmothers, they were converted from Catholicism. And that thing is still kind of there, I think, where you have to work yourself for heaven. Right? And she didn't understand the idea of righteousness by faith. And I didn't understand the idea of righteousness by faith. And my mom did not understand the idea of righteousness by faith. Hence, we are growing up thinking that we were so bad that we can never come to God. That we were never, ever going to be good enough to come to God. And it caused havoc in our family because we all started to be Adventists. But by 4th generation, which is my children's generation, only my children are Adventists. By my generation, only I'm the Adventist. And all of my aunts and uncles actually have backslidden from our faith because it's too hard to please God. it's too hard to please God. And you see, God has called me into this ministry from, I think it was about 6 years now that I have been here, that you are my first calling, actually. And God has been working in my heart prior to coming here. And I was studying the Sabbath school. It's funny, I wasn't the one to study the adult Sabbath school lesson because I've been in cradle roll for like forever, right? So I didn't have a chance to study the Sabbath school lesson. And I have been stuck in Noah's story in the cradle roll department for so many years. And finally, 1 year after Oshkosh, the Lord was just doing things in my life. And I thought to myself, I want to study. And I ended up studying the Sabbath school lesson from 1992. It was an archive. And the Sabbath school then was about Romans, which is righteousness by faith. And I found out that we come as we are to Jesus. Filthy, mean, temperamental, angry, ridden with baggage, pain, trauma, all kinds of things. We come to Jesus as that. And he will be the one. First, he knows us. Remember, as I always come up here, I always tell you, God loves us so much because he has invested so much in us. Number one, he created us. And then number two, he died for us. And that is so powerful that we will be able, that we can come to Jesus any way that we are. Any way that we are. But you know, the good thing about when we have that relationship with Jesus, we never leave as we are. He changes us. He's the one to do the changing. And here's actually a little example of how much I didn't understand righteousness by faith. In 1996, Al and I got married, but remember I told you guys how we got together. We were actually out of the church, and we were looking for our own religion. Our religion had to be our own. We were both raised as Adventists in our own terms, and, you know, we came to Jesus as we are. And one of the things that we were influenced was that you have to be a vegetarian in order for you to go to heaven. So I was a vegetarian actually for 8 years because I wanted to go to heaven, you see, and I wanted to take my children to heaven. You know, once you start having children, you start thinking about heaven and church and God, and, you know, that was the thing. And so I was a vegetarian for 8 years because I wanted to go to heaven. So on my own effort, I was trying so hard to stop eating the thing that I love the most, which is filet mignon. I do love meat. I love my red meat. But see, the thing is, my red meat kills me. It's not good for my body. I'm actually allergic to it. I have, you know, bad reactions to it. This is not a health talk, okay? But as I am struggling with that vegetarianism, I realize it's not because I want to go to heaven that I have to be a vegetarian. And that the pull of wanting to eat meat, my goodness, when I see beefsteak, when I go to a restaurant and they have sirloin and T-bone and everything, it's just like, because all my wonderful memories in my life surrounds around meat. We're not a happy family, but when we do go out, we love to go out to this one particular restaurant in San Diego, in Old Town, called La Piñata. And my favorite thing to eat there is shredded beef burrito. And I just love that. And that's the only time I think that, you know, our family are not fighting, is when we're at La Piñata, you know? So that's a good memory for me. And so I told Alan, I have to store that in my memory bank, but then now I have to create new memories with being a vegetarian. All my children are raised vegetarian. And they understand the struggles that mom go to, but my children also understand righteousness by faith. That people always ask me, says, how can you raise vegetarian kids and you yourself, you eat meat? I see you eat meat. I said, I know. And I know it seems like it's very hypocritical. We don't tell our children not to eat meat for whatever reason, but because they know the health reason for not eating meat and why we raise them that way. And we also tell them what struggles Alan and I have about it. And that struggle is between us and God. Now this time, I have been a vegetarian now for about 6 months. Yeah. But this time, I said to God, Lord, can you be the one to fight my battle for me? I'm ready now. I'm ready now to give this one to you. And I have to admit, it's hard, you know. I was at Chipotle yesterday with Dylan, and he loves Chipotle. And we were going to share one thing. So, of course, it has to be vegetarian. But then in my mind, I'm going, I don't want to. I want that steak. So I went up and I ordered Dylan's. And I ordered mine. I said, I want steak. She said, what? I want the sofritas. Yeah, the tofu is fine. Yes, okay. So went through it. We ate it, right? We loved it. And had a great memory, actually, with the boys. So that's kind of in my memory bag. But I prayed, honestly. I said, God, I'm losing this battle here. Help me. Before I could actually have all that, I've struggled so much in my life. I have gone through in life where I have to be the one to be always in control. I have to be the one in control. And I realize I'm not supposed to be the one in control. Amen. It's God who has to be in control. And when that's that, I could actually sleep better at night. I spent most of my teenage years in therapy, from one therapist to another, whoever is a good therapist. And for some reason, they can't heal my brain and they can't heal my emotions. And when I married Alan and we're having problems, I would say, let's go to therapy, because that was the thing. And Alan said, why? Why can't we talk about it ourselves? Well, don't we need to pay someone to help us talk about it? You know? I said, no, we can talk about things on our own. I'm like, really? You know? And I've not gone to therapy until last week, where I went to Soquel, and I was talking to this lady, and then it turned out that she said, you know, you're just tired. She's a Christian therapist, of course, and she said, you're just tired. And you go back to your tent, because, you know, we were at Soquel. You go back to your tent, go and pray, have some quiet time, because this is what Soquel is about. And guess what? In a couple of days, I was feeling so much better. I was a better mom, I was a better wife, and I was a better child of God. But the thing is, I had to spend those first 2 days at Soquel spending a couple hours with God. I am so far away from the Lord. I sometimes feel that I didn't understand. I don't understand the things that He's saying. And see, the thing is this. Sometimes we get so busy with what we do. We're kind of like this flicker flyer here, you know? And we try to do the good thing. We try to do the right thing because we're supposed to be vegetarians. We're supposed to pay our tithes. We're supposed to be going to Sabbath. We're not supposed to wear this kind of clothes. We're supposed to be thinking this way. But it's all what we think we should do. And yes, sometimes we go through the little tunnel and we hit it. We hit the plate, right? Yes, I did it. But then, more than what we do right, we do wrong. And then, just like little Sadie, we say, I don't want to have anything to do with God because I'm not good enough for Him. And God is not asking us to be good enough. He's only asking us, come to me, my child. All God has been trying to do ever since Adam and Eve has eaten that fruit in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is to restore us to Himself. That's all He's been trying to do. He sent Jesus to die for us because He wants to restore us to Himself. He had a tabernacle in the middle of the Canaanites because He wants to restore us to Himself. He wants to dwell. He wants to tabernacle with us. And that's what He wants to do. If it's here in Lake Kachuma, then let it be. If it's in Hollydale, then let it be. If it's in our own home, then let it be. But work towards restoring yourself with God. Because guess what? You will always be successful. Because why? He's already doing all that work. If your intent in your heart is to say, God, restore me to you. God, help me and guide me. Be my God. Be my God. And you know, when we married, I know with the married couple here, when we married someone, and that when we're at the altar and we say our vow, we look at each other in each other's eyes and we say, I'm going to love you forever, you know? That's our vow. And God wants us to have that vow, except that He will not break His vow with us. He's not any human being who's immature. You know, like me, when I married Alan, I was thinking, I'm going to marry this guy for 3 months, and then I'm going to give him back to his mom. That's how immature I was. Okay? Yeah. And Alan, on the other hand, he's thinking, this woman will be my wife forever and ever, no matter how ugly she looks or how fat she gets or how many children will have or whatever cancerous things that she does. She will always be my wife. That was his thought, really, honestly. And my mom going, in 3 months, I'm going to give this guy back to his mom, and I go back to school, get a degree, and then I'm going to marry my Jewish doctor. And once in my life, I would think I married someone I actually love. But I'm going to be rich, and I'm going to be okay. That's what my thought was. Imagine that. Right? See how far away I was? How did Tracee get here? God. I want to tell you, I don't want to say these things to you because I want, to discourage about life or to say, but I wanted you to know that when God changes you, that it's Him who does the changing, you look back and you go, who was that? Was that really me? And that's what God is looking for. That's what righteousness by faith is about, is having that relationship with Jesus and allowing Him to change you, to allow Him to restore your heart, to allow Him to be everything that you are. And when you're so in love with Jesus, nothing else matters in your world. And I have a friend that actually met in Canada, and he said to me, we were just talking, and he has the same experience as I, but he's a guy and he does different things. And this lady saying, you guys have been gone everywhere. And we said, because when you allow God to write your itinerary, He takes you to places, beautiful places that you would never even think about or even dream of. And that's what He does. And that's what He wants to do in all of us. So as we go through camp, think about the beautiful trees and think about the beautiful lake and the things that God actually wants to do in your life, and tell Him, Lord, I give it to you. It's all yours.
Thank you, Tracee. All right, thank you so much. Before we go to our next activity, Chuck and his family are going to sing for us.